Welcome to another TrickerTaker review. I'm Tricker. I'm more into the mechanics of the game, and this is my partner Taker, who's more into the theme of the game. The game we're covering today is Woo. It's a re-implementation of an older game called Schnapsen, and it's done by Chris Handy. It's one of these pack of gum games that are the size of a pack of gum, and the cards themselves are about like the size of a stick of gum. We will be using, just to have it show up better on camera, we'll be using bigger cards, and not because we might have lost Woo in the giant collection of trick-taking games, but we're not going to talk about that. We'll talk about the theme instead. Yeah, the theme of this game isn't very strong at all. It's mainly just marriage, in a sense, which we love, but it's just wooing the other card in your suit. So the king and the queen are trying to woo each other and get marriages, because that gets you points in the game. Right, and those marriages are one of the mechanics. So it's a trick-taking game where it starts with may follow. You can play whatever you want, but after the trick resolves, players will draw a card back up into their hand. Once that stack in the center is gone, it becomes a must-follow game. You can also make it gone earlier. It's called closing the stock, which I'll explain later. But essentially, it's may follow, then it becomes must follow, and you're trying to get certain cards in the game, certain points, and you're also trying to reveal marriages between the king and the queen, because that also gives you points. And the interesting thing, it's a bit of a memory tracking game, because you're just trying to get to 66 points before the other player. You get points by capturing certain cards, and the cards in the tricks you collect are worth a different amount of points. But you're essentially trying to hit 66 before the other player, and the second you hit 66, it's some type of memory. You can't look at the cards you've taken, you just have to kind of remember it. You will get a point, like a game point, and then it's first to 7 game points. We'll go into how the rest of the game plays, but that's mainly the flow of the game. Is trick-taking may follow, then must follow, and you're just trying to get as many points as you can. Here we have the deck here, and it's mostly a makeshift deck. The full deck in Woo is seen over here, and they actually have the point values and the rank on the cards to help it simplify. Since this is the makeshift deck, we're just going to have these kind of helpful aids over here that denotes how many points each card is worth and their rankings. But, so for the game, you shuffle this deck, you deal 6 to each player, and then you're going to have kind of a stock in the center with a card flipped over. This will be trump, and then this will be also what players will draw from after they play to the trick during the course of the game. So players will lead a card to the trick, and then it's may follow, but the winner of the trick is whoever plays the highest trump, because you can play whatever you want. Maybe this player, if they did have a trump, they could have played that trump. They don't have to follow suit at the start. But if not, it's just the highest ranking card. So maybe they play that into the trick and win it. The winner will then draw a card into their hand, and the loser will then draw a card into their hand. And this keeps going until someone either decides after they've won a trick to stop and close the stock, or it can go through the stock. But so either the stock empties or closes, and after that, then it becomes a must-follow trick-taking game. So if this player here played that heart, this player would have to play this heart or these 2 hearts. They'd have to choose one of them to play, but they can't essentially play whatever they want like they could in the earlier one. They'd have to follow suit. If you go to lead to the trick and you have the king and queen in any of the suits, you can reveal both of them and lead one of them to get points, and the points are over there, but it's essentially 20 points for a non-trump marriage. This is called a marriage when you reveal the king and the queen. Or if you had the suit that is the trump suit in the marriage, so the king and the queen of hearts in this case, if you revealed that, that's worth 40 points. So that's most of the rules. So after players play the final trick and it gets collected, then you count to see if someone has gotten 66 or more points. If they do, they would win a game point in the game, and it's first to 7 game points. And now let's see how the game feels. I guess we can start on the mechanics here. We love trick-taking games, and especially ones where they are competitive and have interesting flow to them. The thing we've never seen was the may follow to must follow. That was really cool. I'm personally not the best at memory, so it was tough to be able to remember how close I was to winning. I think a lot of the times.
Yeah, that number was hard to remember. I think I missed it maybe once in a while, a couple of times, but you were missing it all the time.
Definitely, I would call it too early, or not call it when I could have. And we would look back at the cards I took, and I was lamenting the fact that I could have called it and won. There's an interesting tension of trying to decide whether you should close the stock or not, or knowing if your hand isn't the best, maybe you want to keep drawing. The 66 point threshold is interesting because it could happen pretty early, especially if people are showing marriages. The marriage kind of flow helped with getting those points earlier and trying to, especially if you win a trump especially if you reveal the trump in marriage, it's worth 30 points. But if you get a lot of points early, it has more interesting tension with closing the stock or not, especially because winning the last trick is with 10 points as well. And so that can, if you close the stock and then make it through those 6 tricks that are then must follow, you try to win the last one and have that be what puts you over that threshold.
I like the tension of when to close the stock or not. It was interesting to choose whether you were close to 66 and wanted to close it, or maybe you keep it open for that discovery. Maybe you had half of a marriage you thought you could draw into, and it was fun to kind of have that discovery and that card draw be another excitement point to the game. And when you drew into trump, it felt good, or you drew into a marriage, it felt really good.
Alrighty, yeah. So the last thing is, why would you own it? Well, you can just play this with a standard deck of cards like we showed in the overview. The interesting thing about owning the actual game of Woo is it's nicely helpful for players who don't want to have to remember what the card values will be. It's on the cards themselves, and then also the point values are on the cards themselves. And it's also super nice because it tells you, it has symbols for the marriages. Those 2 symbols making the wedding ring have it on the cards, the king and the queen. And it's helpful for just the teach and for learning and for reminders. So the Woo itself is a great copy. The cards, some people might think they're a little small. We didn't have issues with them, but they are, size of a stick of gum. So keep that in mind. The only other thing is it is a very small game, and as you can see here, because we had to use the Zelda pack, we did lose the game somewhere. I'm sure it's somewhere in the shelves. But overall, we think it's great to own, small form factor, and it packs a lot of punch in that pack of gum.
Yeah, but for the theme, I would not recommend this for the theme. It was very dry, themeless TrickerTaker, pretty by the numbers. It had that marriage angle to it, which was fun and silly, but if you're coming for a theme on a TrickerTaker, we'd probably say look elsewhere. We really love Jekyll vs. Hyde. That has a nice theme integration with the mechanics. But for this one, it's really just a trick-taking game and more of a themeless take on the idea of just combining 2 cards and calling it a marriage, really.
Yeah, so overall, we'd recommend it for anyone who's trying to get into trick-taking, or maybe even veterans. The memory aspect and kind of knowing what to play is very interesting if you know trick-taking. But if you don't, you can just kind of play this lightly, and I think the Woo deck is helpful more than the standard deck, but either of them are both really fun to play. That is it for this video, and if you like the video, that's great, and we'll definitely be coming out with more reviews later. So thanks for watching.
Your accents are just kind of similar.
Our accents are completely different. They're like, where's the car? And we're like, where's the car?